Donovan Mitchell is coming off an amazing season in which we saw him dominate in the playoffs and is slowly becoming one of the NBA's biggest superstars. As such, it's only right that we get to know him a little better. So in today's video, we'll be talking about 10 things you didn't know about Donovan Mitchell. But before we get into that, subscribe to our channel and leave a like on the video. Number 10. He wears number 45 because of MJ. One thing that immediately jumps out when you see Donovan play, apart from his impressive basketball skills of course, is that he wears a rather peculiar number on his jersey, number 45. Any NBA fan would probably know that this is the number that His Airness wore after his comeback to the league, and that is indeed the reason why Mitchell also decided to wear it, to acknowledge the best basketball player of all time and someone who inspired him growing up. However, most players who want to give a nod to MJ opt to wear his more memorable number 23, the number he wore when he won each of his 6 NBA championships. But the reason Mitchell opted for 45 is perhaps MJ also wore that number when he was experimenting with a baseball career. Which leads us to our next interesting fact about the Jazz shooting guard. Number 9, he almost chose baseball over basketball. You might think that, considering how good he is, Donovan was always set on basketball being his primary focus in life. But that was far from being the case, at least earlier in his life. Mitchell's father, Donovan Sr., used to be a pro minor league baseball player, and while his dreams of playing in the major league never realized, he did join the New York Mets as a director of player relations. Thanks to his father's position, Donovan Jr. spent his childhood in MLB locker rooms and absolutely fell in love with the game, and during his first 2 years of high school was a standout pitcher and shortstop. Unfortunately for his baseball career, but thankfully for us NBA fans, Mitchell suffered a broken wrist during a high school baseball game after a collision with an opposing player. The injury meant that Donovan would miss an entire summer of AAU baseball, which made the then high school sophomore devastated. After this, he decided to focus on developing his basketball skills, and he hasn't looked back since. To this day though, baseball is still a big part of Donovan's life, and having grown up in Connecticut, he's a big-time New York Mets fan. Number 8. Mitchell wants to become a broadcaster after his NBA career. Despite being only 24 years old and at the beginning of his NBA career, Donovan already has his mind set on what he wants to do after he retires as a player. And that's to continue making an impact on the basketball world, but this time as a broadcaster. Following in the footsteps of other great players turned broadcasters like Reggie Miller, Chris Webber, Charles Barkley, and many more. After stating his desire to become a broadcaster, the NBA even invited him to be a commentator for the 2020 NBA All-Star Rising Stars game. And we must say that he did a pretty good job, considering it was his first taste of sports broadcasting. To aid in his path of becoming a sports broadcaster, Donovan even took on a bachelor's in communications at Louisville, and is reportedly still attending summer classes in order to graduate. Number 7, he thought about quitting basketball not too long ago. Seeing Donovan score 50 in the playoffs might lead you to believe that he was always this talented and that his future in the NBA was guaranteed from a very young age. But that couldn't be further from the truth. Growing up, Donovan didn't have much confidence in his basketball skills, and in his earlier playing days was mostly known for his dunking ability. This, along with the fact that Donovan was always more interested in baseball as a kid, led him to be very close to quitting basketball on multiple occasions. But even after becoming a star in high school and securing a basketball scholarship with Louisville, his troubles didn't quite come to an end. And as recently as his freshman year in college, he was still considering quitting basketball. Donovan shot just 25% from 3 in his freshman season, and it wasn't looking like he was ever going to become successful in the NBA. Adding schoolwork and adjusting to the new environment to the mix, things became a little too much for the then 19-year-old. And he even spent plenty of sleepless nights crying and wondering if he was good enough to make it as a basketball player. Thankfully, 5 years later, we have an answer to his question, and we must say that he is more than good enough. Number 6. LeBron is his favorite player. Being a big-time sports junkie growing up, Donovan had no shortage of players that he idolized and loved to watch play. Very early on, he was a huge fan of Vince Carter and would try to emulate his dunks in the backyard and during middle school games. In more recent years, he developed a strong admiration for D. Wade and Russell Westbrook, who he modeled his game after. However, Mitchell's favorite player by far is LeBron James. In fact, when Donovan was 14 years old, LeBron James was supposed to announce the decision in Greenwich, Connecticut, where Donovan was attending school. Being a big fan of his, Mitchell skipped school for the day and went on to watch his favorite player announce that he was going to leave for the Miami Heat. Unlike most people in the crowd, Spida was actually very happy with LeBron's decision, as he felt that he was finally going to get his ring. Years later, the two were battling it out in the West, making this a textbook story of when your idols become your rivals. Number 5. The Nuggets traded him on draft night. After 3 years in Salt Lake City, Donovan said that he feels right at home. But on draft night in 2017, it looked like Denver would be the place where he would start his NBA career, as the Nuggets drafted him with the number 13 pick. However, since Denver was already set at the guard positions, they decided to trade him for, believe it or not, Trey Lyles in the 24th pick of that same draft, which turned into none other than Tyler Lydon, who's played a whopping 95 minutes in the NBA so far. At the time, maybe the trade looked reasonable for the Nuggets, who wanted to add more big man talent. And Mitchell himself said that he was worried when he found out that they drafted him, because he feared he wouldn't get much game time. In retrospect though, one can only wonder what could have been if Jamal Murray and Spida Mitchell lined up in the backcourt for the Nuggets, along with the big fella up front, Nikola Jokic. Number 4, he surpassed all expectations during his rookie season. Being a lottery pick in the 2017 draft, you can't say that Donovan came out of nowhere and beat all the odds, as the players who were selected that high are usually expected to have an immediate impact on their teams. However, even the most optimistic of Jazz fans out there did not see the rookie season he had coming. Just a little over a month into his pro career, Mitchell recorded 41 points in a game, which was the first 40-point game by a rookie since Blake Griffin in 2011. What's even more impressive is that he did it again 2 months later. Mitchell went on to have a rookie season for the ages, finishing with averages of 20.5 points, 3.7 assists, and 3.7 rebounds, performing better than any player in his class, which included guys like Jason Tatum, Lonzo Ball, and De'Aaron Fox. He not only did it in the regular season though, as he also had an impressive series-deciding performance in Game 6 of the first round of the playoffs against a star-filled Thunder team. This proved that Donovan can perform on the highest stage possible, and was ready to become a superstar in the league. Unfortunately, this wasn't enough for him to win the Rookie of the Year award, as Ben Simmons was eligible to receive it after not playing a single game in the previous year. Number 3, Chris Paul and Paul George made him go pro. It seems like Donovan can be pretty hard on himself, as he didn't feel good enough to declare for the 2017 NBA draft, fearing that he would go undrafted. In fact, his mind was so made up upon going back for a third year at Louisville that he didn't even pack anything before he left his dorm, as he was certain that he would come back. But after attending a summer pre-draft camp where he got to hang out and work out with superstars Paul George and Chris Paul, the two were very impressed with his game and convinced him that he's more than capable to compete in the NBA. It turned out that they were right, and Donovan's fears were irrational, as he not only got drafted in the lottery, but he went on to dominate in his rookie season. As fate would have it, the two would later face the kid in the playoffs, and George might have regretted making him declare for the draft, as Mitchell scored 38 on him and the Thunder to eliminate them from the playoffs. CP3 and the Rockets handled business though, eliminating the Jazz in 5 games, ending an impressive rookie campaign for the young Spida. Number 2, he starred in a docu-series. A lot of people don't know this, but Donovan has starred in a docu-series called Rookie on the Rise, which followed his journey in his first season in the league, as he was going head-to-head against Ben Simmons in the race for the Rookie of the Year award. The show didn't attract much attention though, probably in part because it's an Amazon Prime exclusive, which means that you can only watch it if you're an Amazon Prime subscriber. There are a few short clips of it on YouTube though, where we can see what the show's about. Even though the show went fairly unnoticed among the NBA community, and it certainly isn't for everybody, but if you're a big-time Jazz fan, and especially if you're a big-time Donovan Mitchell fan, it might be worth the watch. Rookie on the Rise followed up with a second season in 2019, this time following Trae Young and his journey to NBA stardom. Number 1, his mom wanted him to focus on education. Donovan has a very special relationship with his mother, Nicole, who sacrificed a lot for her son to be where he is today. When Donovan was a young kid in middle school and high school, his mom would drive him all over the East Coast for games, and worked extra hard to make sure him and his sister were provided with food and clothes. But believe it or not, his mother wasn't the biggest fan of young Spida spending so much time on the basketball court, as she felt the chances for him to make it as a pro were very slim, and he would be far better off if he focused more on his studies. But since basketball was the only way he'd be able to attend college, she encouraged him to pursue it. To her surprise, Donovan not only earned a scholarship, but is now one of the best young players in the NBA, and we're sure that Nicole would be the first one to say that she's glad she was wrong. Which one of these facts about Donovan Mitchell surprised you the most? Do you think he has the potential to become a Hall of Famer? Let us know in the comments section below, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel and leave a like on the video.